Why is shame such a powerful emotion? How does it affect us mentally, physically, emotionally? I'm Nadia Davis. I'm a mom, author, attorney, and Kundalini yoga teacher who has experienced public shaming that brought me to my knees. On this podcast, I'm going to tell you how I'm living the work taking shame out of the shadows. I'll give you real life advice and skills to take away with you throughout your day. You'll hear from powerful guests who have overcome trauma and emerged stronger than ever. You too can ban the shame within and around you. Join me. You are not alone. Okay, we are here, and I am super excited about today's guest. I just adore this woman, and she and I connected on a lot of levels. And when I talk about creating a home within, it starts, it's freedom from our thoughts that separate us from our true selves and each other. But when I see outside shaming of human struggles, it it fires me up. And so when I see another woman that is aiming and her purpose is to use her story to stop the non-acceptance of everybody where they're at, just as they're at in any given moment and in general. She has a voice that stands, in my opinion. I know I'm being super serious, but what you just told me, what was happening to somebody, maybe we'll touch on, is so disturbing. Megan has a voice about solely about honoring acceptance of everybody, as well as triumphs. Everybody deserves equal celebration for their triumphs, and that we don't have to listen to what people tell us we're supposed to be or not, nor succumb to pressures to look perfect and conform or not be sensitive, and all the no's also. She says that we've all been put here for a reason and deserve acceptance. Megan is a trauma survivor from a very, very early age, and she has been diagnosed with complex PTSD. Ditto.
Mhm.
And we're partnering on a super cool project called Shatterproof that it works to end the stigma of addiction. But I want to talk about her story because it's why people like us get so passionate about the shaming of struggles. Meaning she has been dragged through the mud. I have been dragged through the mud. And when you survive that and then get to a point of thriving, like she says, we don't want anybody to go through the same thing. So we're going to tell you a little bit about her story so that everyone can see what happens when they are shamed and also how to get out of it. And so, Megan, I'm so happy you're here. I'm like a
I'm so
little
happy
nervous.
to be here. I'm thrilled to see you. It's been a while, and I've
I
kind of been all
kn-
over the place. And I know we've been playing like tag to get stuff done, but I'm honored to be on the podcast. And I think what you do is so important. And your story when you came on my podcast really touched me. And then your book, and then doing the shatterproof thing, I think is so important. Like you said, we're really in the same lane when it comes to trying to help other people. I think a lot of times because for what I do, I constantly deal with people that have struggled in some capacity.
oh, yeah,
And
Megan Judge is the host of the awesome podcast, Judging Megan. That's what she's referring to.
yeah, sorry,
And
I didn't
it's
mean to plug it.
awesome. No, I didn't say it, but that's how I met her. And it is a great podcast. So she's saying she talks with people
about
about,
their struggles, about about anything. Like we just touched on, I had a girl come on today, and after I finished recording, I was just shook by her story. We both are in the same lane of trying to use what's happened to us in our own lives and turn it around. And when you introduce me, and I say, like, from surviving to thriving, and I joke because it sounds kind of obnoxious. It's like, oh, here I am thriving. I'm not really thriving.
It's
Thriving
a
to me,
daily living the
yeah,
work, right?
thriving to me means like putting my shoes on in the morning and like nudging my kids to get out the door. Yeah.
It's so funny how alike we are because, like, I don't feel comfortable in the whole, like I just, don't present me as not, like, every day is living work.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like more and more when that I feel like there's a movement of authenticity out there in the world, and it's like, I can't be any other way, and I see it in you, like, this is me, and it's freaking awesome. I love how I just love your energy,
I don't
and
know if
so
it's awesome. It's just like taking it day by day. And, like I was really honestly like beaten down so badly by circumstances in the past few years that I just got to the point of going, like, I really honestly have nothing to lose. So I can just be like my authentic self and just,
Right.
you either like me or you don't. I really could. I mean, am I allowed to cuss? Probably. Is that okay?
A little, I'm just kidding, no.
I don't give
You would be the
a
first on the
rap. I
podcast to
didn't
do
say I
so,
don't
and
give
so I
a
give you that
rap A.
honor.
Yeah, I'll say a
I
rap A, and you can figure out what I mean by that. I have a bad Irish temper and a bad potty mouth sometimes.
So, but when you say you had nothing to lose, okay? Now, that was probably a measure of all the stuff on the outside, right?
Hmm.
Whatever it was.
Yeah. So,
Your
like,
job, your reputation, your whatever it was, right? And from that place, when we see I mean, you get to a point where you feel like it's like you're worthless or you feel like I lost everything. But in that is like this pivotal point where even if you don't see everything is right there in you that matters, you're kind of like, screw it,
hmm
F it. And
hmm
then you're in what is all that matters. And you started feeling good, probably.
I mean,
Not good.
I'm very honest with this. I'm not. I mean, I, I'm doing well. I'll say that. Like, I have my good days and my bad days. Kind of going through it recently. I told you I've gone through some stuff recently. I'm still here. I try to be positive that way.
Mhm.
Life is a series of ups and downs, like peaks and valleys. So, like, just to give you like a brief, I mean, I can tell you what my story and then just kind of get you to like where we are right now. Um,
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the core wounds, like a little
so
bit about your childhood or a lot that maybe are themes that then come up today and what you're experiencing. Like, do you recognize any of that?
of
Like
course
your
I do.
core, like core abandonment, like
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your childhood. It
So, I mean, I'll make this brief. But at the age of 2, my mom went to get my younger sister out of her crib. She was born with a really rare liver disease, and she had died in her sleep. And the paramedics came into the house and were trying to, I witnessed all of it because I was sitting in my high chair. We were basically Irish twins. We were that close in age. And so my very young experience as a human being on this planet was seeing my sister die right in front of me. And the seeds of trauma were born at that point. So I that had happened to me, and my mom really obviously like, she went out on the lawn. She was beside herself. I was kind of left in a high chair. A neighbor had to come get me. It was a lot. I don't remember
Oh
any of
my
it because I was so
gosh, dear
young.
one.
Yeah, but it
How
was
old were you?
2. Yeah, I was 2, and my sister was 9 months. Um, so I was very little when that happened, and then, um, that was I remember being a kid and always being worried about something happening to my parents. Like, they would go on this vacation every year, and, our babysitter, Mrs. Loxton, who I thought was mean, would come and stay with us, and I would go sit. I had this big closet with this big giant dollhouse, which I loved, and I would go in there and I would just like rock back and forth and say, like, please God, because I grew up Catholic, always religious. Please don't let anything happen to my mom and dad. And then my dad was diagnosed when I was 13 with leukemia, and so, once again, it was like that trauma, that wound was opened again. And so he battled leukemia for 9 months. He went through 3 rounds of chemotherapy and he passed away. And then, I met my very, very best friend the very next day. And it's a crazy story because this is how I'm very spiritual, which I've told you before. And I know that I'm going to be reunited with my angels
Mhm,
again. I just know it. And
mhm.
there's no way that this story could have happened, I believe, if there is no God. So the very next day, I'm at my country club. I grew up in right outside Washington D.C., and I see this giant, like, black Lincoln, whatever town car come driving up, or we had this big circle. And my mom had sent us, my brother and I, to the club to go swim because, like, my dad had just died and they were preparing for the funeral. And this car comes pulling up and down goes the window. And he goes, "Are you Johnny Judge's little girl?" And I said, "Yeah." And the back window goes down and he's like, "This is my daughter, Julie." And that's how I met my best friend. I met my best friend the very next day. We were inseparable. We were together all the time. I joke all the time. We were like the devil and the angel on the shoulder. I was the devil. I was always getting in trouble. And she was pretty much as perfect as people come. And, we went through our
You were
teens together.
13?
What?
You were 13?
13. Yeah. And we went through our teens together. I was in a my home life was horrific after my dad passed away. My mom remarried a monster, and he was verbally abusive and an alcoholic. And so I really, just wanted to escape. And so that I went to the Ellis's and they kind of took me in and I was there all the time. And, I pretty much lived there when I was home. My mom I had sent me away to boarding school because my stepfather hated my brother and I, and my brother went to boarding school too. It was not an easy home life, I'll say that. And so we went through our teens together, so many happy memories, like so much joy, the kind of friendship that you can never take for granted in life. If you have a friend like this, it's like so much laughter. We would laugh so hard that we would cry. Like, we were just like, as far as friends come, she was my soulmate. I believe she's my soulmate to this day. I know that sounds, maybe people don't understand. We weren't, like, obviously a couple, but we were the very best of friends, and I still feel connected to her to this day. She
Yeah.
got pregnant with her first baby. I had moved out to LA to pursue an acting career, and she went into the hospital, and they had not connected the tubes when they gave her the epidural, and so there was one tube that was hanging. So the meningitis virus got into the tube and basically got into her spinal cord, and she ended up getting that virus into her brain, and they didn't know because back then masks weren't, not people could go into hospitals, and like families could go in. It was not uncommon that people, you would get an epidural, I think, and people would be in the room. I don't know how many were in the room, but there were people in the room, like, throughout. And so she had to end up delivering her baby naturally because that wasn't connected. The anesthesiologist realized what he did, connected it. And then her brain swelled. I mean, it's a horrific story. They did a Dateline about it. But she ended up going brain dead because there was nothing they could do to save her. They missed a lot of things they shouldn't have missed. And so she passed away. And I had to get on an airplane and fly all the way across the country, and they waited for me to pull her off life support. And that was like that amount of trauma took me over the edge, really.
How old were you when that happened to
I
her?
was 29, so she was 28. So I say
So
all the
you've
time, like
been
my
friends
first,
more than half your life.
yeah, so like my first 30 years on this planet were like constant fight or flight, really. And
Oh, I wanna go back. Hold on.
yeah, go ahead.
From the 13 to 29, you created like a groove
Hmm.
in life that was on the outside, then spiritual with a friend, and could finally feel safe and okay in accepting the joy after your father passed and the trauma of your sibling. Yet it was always under the surface, but you felt safe with her or seen. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then the shock of how her death happened without any warning. Oh my God, it just breaks my heart, honey.
Yeah, it was
I
pretty horrific. I mean, I think back on that. I mean, it's hard not to think about. It's been, I won't age myself, but it's been years. And Logan is her son and he's doing well, and her husband remarried, and life has gone on, but like out of all the loss, I feel her like with me. I can't even explain it sometimes. I
I
know
know
it's very
exactly what
close
you
to me,
mean,
like
though.
closer to my than my dad and my sister are. I know my dad and my sister are with me somewhere, but Julie is always with me. Like
Mhm,
I feel her with me. Yeah, she is a
mhm.
presence in my life at all times.
She's a sister soul.
Yeah, yeah. And then so I went on like to, kind of push down all of those things
Mhm.
because I was an actress when I was young, and I met my husband, and I worked in all the nightclubs in West Hollywood, and I was like a cocktail girl, and you know moved out here. I knew everyone and every door guy at every club, and I really came out here to escape, what I had gone through in my childhood. But the thing is with trauma is it always bubbles back up, and it's going to come back to bite you in the butt, as I like to say. Um, so I ended up marrying my husband, in my early 30s, and we had met in our 20s, and we're still very happily married. I'm very fortunate to have him. But we moved to a beach city, in LA, and it's beautiful here. And we have two gorgeous daughters that are, if you were to show me like a crystal ball when I was a little girl of like, one day this is going to be your life, it's going to be your husband, and these are going to be your kids, I wouldn't probably have believed you. I would have said, wow, like, I can't
Mhm.
believe that that's what I ended up getting. Like, I am so lucky. But what ended up happening was I moved to this area and I met this group of women. And one of them I thought was like, our kids had met in preschool. I thought she was my closest friend. Like we became fast friends very fast. And I've always been a girl's girl. I've always had lots of friends. I'm very social, still friends with all my friends from growing up in college and high school. so I've always been fortunate to have friends. I just have been that person. And this girl ended up just starting to do like really mean things, and I wasn't kind of piecing it together. It was
So,
kind
how long ago
of
was this?
this was like I met her probably in like 2015,
Okay.
and the friendship
And
came to a like an ending in like 2019 probably. The very
okay.
like yeah. So
So s
go ahead.
so and what were the main things? Like,
Just like I was in this group of friends with these women, and they were, the one friend that I thought was my closest friend started doing like mean things. Like I would find out about plans that she didn't include me in, or she would like drop off her kid and lie to me, like say, can you watch my kid? And she would have a dinner with a different like group of friends, like weird stuff. But
okay.
I
Very
like
weird.
just mean girl stuff. And then like we would be sitting at a table with a group of women, and I've always been very theatrical, and I like to get
Mhm.
attention. I've just always been this way. So I like to be funny, like to tell funny stories. People have always thought I was pretty funny. And I would catch her like as I was telling a story, and she would be like rolling her eyes at, and
Okay.
yeah, like it was just like
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot of like stuff. And then I would find out from other people she was talking about me, just like mean girl stuff that
Mhm.
shouldn't be happening. And I live in a
Crappy
pretty
stuff.
fluent area, and it's very like new money. So all people care about here are like who you are, and like what do you drive, and like where do your kids go to school. It's phony baloney. I mean, just to be frank, there's things I love about it, but there's a lot of things I don't. And so I was in this group of friends, and basically the one friend, not to give it any more legs than it has, so long story short, she ended up like planning a trip with people that were my friends too, and they didn't include me, and they didn't include my husband. And this is somebody that was like telling me I was her best friend for like years. Our daughters were best friends, and I couldn't believe it. I was completely traumatized, and these other women were like, "Oh, were you invited on this trip?" And I knew nothing about it. I felt stupid.
So
And
how long did this go on, and when, if
I
at all,
think
did
it was
you,
in
like,
like
say
a in,
something to her
um
before it kinda blew up?
I had said stuff to her like prior. What happened was she basically replaced me with a different friend. I know it sounds really weird unless you understand the situation. I sound like I'm a crybaby, or, like it's a, like,
No, because those subtle little things,
yeah,
like not inviting you when they're getting together. I don't mean the trip, I mean, like, the little subtle things, like,
like making plans with
dropping the
people.
kid off and
Yeah,
then making plans with others. I mean, it's powerful,
like the
and
way
it's
that
and it's
women treat other
strange,
women.
that
Yeah,
confusion.
yeah,
That
and the way that
confusion is
women,
like a curse on our mind, on your mind.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you're so smart that were you trying to figure it out, and then it's like emotionally exhausting or mentally, the distraction in your head.
I just couldn't. Well, I finally, like, I'm one of those people, like, you piss me off enough, I'm done.
Mhm.
Like, I just,
Mhm. I'm
yeah,
saying.
like, I'm not like somebody that puts up with bad behavior for a long period of time. But she was somebody I deeply cared about, So I couldn't believe it because we were close for a period, very, very close. Like, and then basically what ended up happening was the trauma of not being included and being replaced. Like I slowly started to see her like our family wasn't included, and she had replaced us with a whole new family. And unless you like were in my shoes to
It's
understand,
just weird.
it's so weird, but it gets worse. So
And
basically,
so, let's stop a
yeah,
second.
yeah.
Because can you identify and explain, like, the feelings that were coming up in you? Because I think a lot of it is shame. There's no reason to force the feelings into that, but
Hmm.
the nuance of, like, what was her shaming of like, there's something quote unquote wrong with you. There's a reason that you're not being included. Those little subtle messages are powerful, right? Like
Well, I
the
didn't.
questioning of,
Yeah.
well, why wasn't I invited? But then her not being direct
Hmm.
is powerfully subtle crap. And so like how did it make you feel? Because we can surmise what was going on in her. Jealousy, her own insecurity, feeling threatened, um, I don't even know what, but only someone whose mind is sending these false beliefs within them would, or sociopathy would cause this strange behavior. Yes, sociopathy is you have no regard for anybody's feelings or rights versus coming up to you and saying, "Oh, hey, I'm just feeling a little awkward here, and I think I'm gonna invite this other family because they may jive better with mine," or whatever the reason is.
So I would have
But yeah,
killed to have her say something to me, because what she was doing was she would like give me like be like, "Oh no, everything's fine." Like I would ask about it.
that's even more
Yeah, or I would be
confusing.
like, like, "Oh, we have like, oh, are we going after the kids' dance performance to brunch? Remember we made plans?" And then I'd find out like, "Oh, we made plans with so and so. We're going to the yacht club." Like I was basically replaced with like a richer person. Like this girl was
No,
very
but this is
yeah.
psychologically screwed up stuff, honey.
Oh my
So
god, yeah.
so don't downplay it. Like, the weight of trying to figure it out and, like, and it's psychologically weighing, I
It
believe,
was
and
like it was
cruel.
like so I mean, this is somebody like I had sponsored like to be like become like get in the religion that we're in. Like I had like we were close. Like and so it was so messed up to feel like betrayed like that. And I knew though, like I started to see signs, and then I started to retreat and I became closer to other people. And then when she would see me becoming closer to other people, she'd write me mean texts about those people, being like, so and so is ugly, like weird stuff.
So
And
how did it make you feel when
it
she
made
would
me feel I
exclude you?
never felt comfortable in my own skin in this environment of friends. And I also was not as nice of a person as I am now. I'm not ever going to say I'm a saint. Like I was in a friendship with her and in this group of friends, and all the group of friends did is when somebody got up to go to the bathroom, they would be like, "Did you know what so and so?" It was like grown up mean girls. That's what it was.
Mhm. But in your core wounds of
Yeah.
this abandonment and the fear of emotional closeness, like all of those deep, deep core stuff that then later when somebody enters your life and is that manipulative emotionally, all those things keep coming up, keep triggering like, w- what's the, you want to believe you're close, you want to believe you're valued,
Yeah.
and then it's just cruel. So, I mean, like, in those moments, so in the very beginning, was it hurt? Was it before it repeated, but, like, the first 3 times she did that, like, was it
It
confusion,
was it was
hurt?
literal like it was here's the thing. I knew there was something wrong with the friendship, and but I was so badly looking for another Julie. That's the problem.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm never going to find another Julie. I mean, the story goes on, and I'll tell you really quickly. So
Was there,
basically,
like, worthiness thing, like, I'm not worthy of
yeah, I
another
guess it was
Julie
that.
or yeah.
Yes, it was that, but it was also I was in a trauma bond with a friend, and I'd never thought that that was something that could happen, but I can tell
Oh.
you it most certainly can. You can be in a trauma bond with a friend, and I was, and she did really nasty, mean things to me, and she'll never admit it to this day. I've written a chapter about it. I've she's never apologized to me for all the things that have happened since. I'm never going to get an apology.
Oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this with an ex from
Yeah,
like
she's
a
gone
year
on to
ago.
have a lot
But
of bad karma and things happen to her. And, the human side of me is like, that's sad. But honestly, I'm still so angry. And it's something I have to work on. But the worst part was, I had tons of friends. I would have this like charity party every year, and like people thought I was funny in the community and like would want to be my friend. And there were people on the outskirts. I call them the Karens, by the way, which is the
so explain the trauma bond,
the
and then we're
trauma
gonna talk
bond.
about the Karens. Okay. The
Okay, well,
trauma bond, I mean, I know what it is, but yeah, what like, explain the dynamics for you.
so the friendship was just a trauma bond, meaning with the one friend, without getting too confusing, of just constantly being like, what? You need what? And I would just like drop everything. And then I would find out that she would
Okay.
tell people like, oh my God, it's so exhausting being friends with Megan. Like mean things. Like make
Um,
she's
the
so
opposite.
sensitive.
Exactly the opposite of what you are and we're offering.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Nadia, I can tell you I've spent
It's sociopathy.
I think she's a narcissist, and I don't want to get sued, and that's why I don't name names, but there's an issue there. I'll just say that. You might have to edit that out. But
And it has nothing to do with you, but it's sociopathic tendencies, and it's very bizarre to be experiencing it, and the trauma bond is from childhood wounds. Kimmy Hunkel Hodges, who I adore, who was my therapist at some point, she's still a therapist, um, had this quote the other day on one of her posts, and I was like, "Bing, bing," and it was,
mhm,
the survivor of childhood trauma, um, doesn't get mad or run away immediately when they are hurt or something, erroneous is said about them. They try to prove the other's love or what's correct over and over and over again, and
mhm,
in whatever way, they don't know they're doing it, but it like, going out of your way to do what she was wanting is one of those examples, or endlessly hoping and wanting and somewhat needing, well, we all need it, an apology for someone that has really, really hurt us and never getting it and still hoping for it. I had to deal with that, over the last several months of just letting that go.
I
But
I
with
don't
you
know how to let it go because it's so hard. Like that's something
painful.
I probably will struggle with this for the rest of my life because it gets worse. So when that
Okay.
happened, I I immediately, like, you asked me like how I dealt with it. Well, how I dealt with it was um I became suicidal. I didn't know how to deal with it. A lot of it is just I couldn't believe that somebody that I trusted, like our daughters were best friends, like our husbands were friends. We did stuff with them on the weekends all the time. And like I would find out from my daughter that her daughter would say, my mom keeps calling your mom and she's just not answering. Like, so it was put on me. Like the damage
But
would be,
when you don't know what you've done wrong or you haven't done anything wrong,
well,
and this is
according to her,
happening, you
yeah,
were so
according to her, I had done
confused
stuff
in the
wrong.
suicidality, it's like,
Yeah.
that part of you that wants to survive and fix it
Mhm.
didn't know how or what. You
No, and a lot of this is maybe somebody that didn't have the trauma of my childhood would have been able to process this way differently. My issue is I just said enough. Like when the trip happened and people were invited and this one girl that is now like became her best friend that's always had the personality of a shoebox. Sorry, but she has and is not and part of that group and was never nice to me. Um, they it turned into like a group of women after that. So let me just like back up a little bit. After that trip happened, there was a woman that is was kind of adjacent to the group. She was desperate to get into the group of friends. I always included her. I thought she was my friend. But she started, I noticed, like doing things like being like, oh, so and so invited me to lunch, so and so invited me to dinner. They had never invited her before, but she was trying to get with the girl that ended up like breaking my heart, my old friend. And it's hard for me because I can't name names, obviously. But so this girl was like kind of waiting in the wings for me to do something wrong so she could be like, guess what Megan did, And so every
That
night,
is
this happened in like the spring of 2000, I would say 2019. It was like the spring, that time of year, okay, when I found out about the trip. So the friendship was done. There's nothing, she never apologized, she never said one thing. But during that period, I still remained friends with my group of friends. So I was really close to another mom, and then this one mom that I knew was shady and was doing things, but I just didn't want to believe it because I was like so desperate to keep the friends that I had, you know. She was, I could tell, like talking out of both sides of her mouth, right? So it got to be like Christmas of that year. And I'm sorry, this was like 2018 maybe, and about to be 2019. And it got to be Christmas, and we had this ornament exchange for my daughter's kindergarten class. And so all the moms came, and I was drinking. I drank way too much. I had a dirty martini and drank wine on an empty stomach. I went with another mom, and there was a mom there, and she kind of like grabbed me and messed with me. And I had seen the other mom that had kind of like replaced my family across the
mhm.
kitchen, and it just set me off. I'd been bottling up all these feelings, and I didn't do anything for months, and I just turned and I was like, used a bunch of expletives, and I was like, go F yourself to this one mom that grabbed me. And there happened to be like three moms standing there, and the mom that was waiting for my downfall. I call her the queen of all Karens. Um, she was like, the next day, she wrote me a text. She's like, you're a horrific person. You're awful. I want nothing to do with you. You're the
Oh
worst
my
person I've ever
god.
met. And she then went to my kids' school. She told them what I did. She trashed me all over my community. I know you can relate to this kind of thing because you had had stuff like this happen to you. Trashed everywhere. I couldn't even go to Target, to my local Manhattan Beach Target, without people that were at one point my friends turning the other way and pretending like they don't know me.
Oh my gosh.
And honestly, that was when my husband, I had no friends. I had nobody stood by me. Like legitimately, like the other girl that I thought was my closest friend started like having parties and not including me.
So you see
Yeah.
how you were carrying all of the psychological
Mhm.
abuse
Mhm.
for how long? And then in a moment where you're getting relief from it, you're
Mhm.
having a drink or whatever, and then it comes out, whether you were having a drink or not,
I was
but
having numerous
it
drinks. Yeah.
okay, so you had numerous drinks
Yeah.
and you weren't able to, like, get up and maybe stand up for yourself enough, or we're just taking it, and then it comes out, and then that way it came out is shamed. That was, like, really, really awful.
Yeah.
Isolation of you, shaming of you, and stuff like that pisses me off because
Mhm.
what is underneath it all? The cause of the hurt that no
Mhm.
one is owning up for and and then no apology for.
No. And
So
then
so
I was
the
like a
cause like,
local.
shaming is such a freaking scapegoat.
Yeah.
So then you in that place, in it's so isolating, it's right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I like I say, like you kind of hear my story, and sometimes I tell it, and I'm like, well, what did Megan do? Like, what, like, why would that happen? Because honestly, I can tell you, I'm like, I went, like, I'm honest. I wasn't a saint. I did cuss that girl out at the party. I when we would go to dinners, I probably didn't say the nicest things about people, just like everyone else. But I can tell you one thing: I was a really freaking good friend. To
But
all
see,
of
all
them.
of that is surface level. Like,
Yeah.
what's the truth underneath it all? Megan, you were a really good friend, and you took all that weird non-directness, passive aggressiveness on her part and whatever, and you took that all, and what is the truth on the other end? She was not direct. Whatever the feelings were going on in her that were making her do that.
Hmm.
Now, if there's sociopathy, then it's not all of that, but there's just a sickness. But those are the two truths. So all this stuff that happened in the middle just clouds both of those. Do you get it? It's all this drama and all this stuff, and it's like the shaming, the gossip, the whatever it is. But
Hmm.
underneath it all is the truth. And you were a good friend, you're a good person, and something in them fails to acknowledge that. But the truth always ultimately wins, and that character on the other end, it people will soon discover or see it,
I
and
don't
that is
know.
what I mean by a home within.
It's
But
been
you got
years, so I
to
don't know.
connect to your truth is the only way out of that suicidality and darkness is right? What do
Yeah,
you know about yourself?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I went on, after that happened, being in, like, my poor husband being in, like, the worst place, like, drooling. Then it was COVID, and I was, like, in the house, and I sat on the beach, and I just was like, because I love the beach. I live at the beach, and I just said, like, I don't want to go on. I'm done. I'm done. I had, like, my exit plan. I had everything. And then, like, when something hit me and I was just like, I lost my dad at 13. Like, I'm not going to do that to my kids. Like, it doesn't mean I'm over it, obviously, but something really hit me in probably 2021 was when I was like, I can't isolate anymore. There's got to be people that like me. I'm pretty
But
freaking
where did it
funny and
bring
great.
you? Explain. I'm sorry I'm asking you to tap
Yeah,
into that pain of it in
yeah,
that year or those months. Like, people need to know where shaming and gossip brings another living human being,
yeah.
and it's crappy. And so, I mean, like, in your in that darkness,
Hmm.
to have somebody's gossip and shaming bring you to the point of not wanting to live anymore was like, how was that feeling for you?
It
Just
was like I mean, I can tell you, I've gone through quite a bit, obviously, with loss. I would not trade. I wouldn't put what I felt and how these people made me feel on anybody, even them. Well, maybe one of them. Maybe the queen of all Karens, I would. But in all seriousness, I have never felt that pain in my entire life, and that betrayal, and I tried everything. I mean, I even, like, called her at one point because after that whole thing happened, I just wanted, we were so close at one point, and I called her and I was like, "Listen, I remember she answered the phone and I was like, I just cussed out the girl, this other girl, the Queen of Karens, was trashing me all around town." I'm like, she had to have a human side where she would be, like, compassionate. I had to believe that because I wasted all those years in that friendship. And I called her and I was like, "Hey, do you have a minute?" And she goes, "Megan, I have nothing but um, best wishes for you. I wish you only the best, but we can never be friends. We can no longer be friends." Like, after, I wasn't calling her to say I want to be her friend. I was basically calling her to be like, "Can you help me? Like, can you get your dumb freaking group of friends to back off?" You know?
Wow.
I mean, there was so much mean crap that went on. I can give you stories of what this other girl has done to me and my
I
family.
can't imagine in
So
the
it's
community.
kind of like been living with a scarlet letter. My kids still go to the school. Like we're still in this community. I walk around. I do have great friends. I'm very selective with friendships now. I'm very guarded. I tend to like isolate a little bit. If one thing kind of happens, I kind of like shut down because I don't really know how, and this is all my journey of having to still be in therapy and get help on all of my trauma. But I, you know, they still
But what
mess.
is that like when you're walking around and you're and that shame or that comes in where you're like, "I wonder if they heard about," or, "I wonder if they've been told this," if there's new people coming into the community or
Well,
we're,
they
like,
do.
walking into the grocery store. I know, and it's
Yeah,
crappy.
they try. I actually was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she's like, "So the girl I think is the queen of all Karens, is still trashing me all over town."
So how do you center yourself to know your truth and who you are? I call it a home within me.
Yeah,
'Cause we know our truths and nothing changes it. Nothing
mhm.
anybody has said or done, nothing anything has done to anybody has done to us, including ourselves. So, how do you how have you walked forward? And I know that there's bad days and good days. I
Mhm.
know that. But in any given do you moment, like, is there a mantra or saying you use or a place you go to, a song, um, a a vision of maybe your friend, of connecting with her spiritually? Like, how do you get back to that center of your truth and go in and hold your head up high and shine?
I mean, I wish I had a better answer for you because I don't. Like, there's things. I mean, when I say this, I talk to my husband about it all the time. It ebbs and flows in life, and I happen to be in a not great place right now, and I'm very upfront with that. I just talk. I have women that
So
reach
you're
out to me all the time, and they're like, "Oh, that happened to me with a friend," because I do the Karens reoccur on the podcast. I don't focus on them because I don't want to give them any more power. They've taken years of power away from my life. I mean, honestly, and I don't like to be the victim. Like, I know that it
yeah.
sounds like, here I am, I'm the victim, I'm the victim. And I think that's the narrative that they give. You know, they just wrote up a piece about me in a magazine. And I didn't mention the friend breakup because I was like, I don't want to give this any more legs than it already has. I'm writing a book. I don't want to give it any more legs. But to answer your question, I don't have an answer on what to do because it's they have trashed me all over my community
So
and it's
but
hard.
we're transforming
Yeah.
their shaming
Mhm,
and the shame you felt. It's we're not giving it power. We're
mhm,
transforming it into power
mhm.
by sharing what it does to us, sharing what it did to you, and then proving that it can't affect us in the sense of choosing suicidality, choosing that like you truth always wins. And so, okay, so from here on out,
Mhm.
then it's living you're living it. You're reminding yourself that, you know, you are of value and you would never let something like that have such a power that it would take you from your daughters.
Well, the thing is that I like that does give me purpose. And I say like a lot, like live a purpose driven life because I really believe that is I could have given up in 2021. I mean, and I was in therapy and my therapist was like, Megan, you're creative. You should be doing something with this. And so that's why I started the podcast. Like I
Okay,
really
there we
started
go.
it. So there's my thing. But it doesn't mean that this stuff, like I'm a human being, it still is hard. I still have to deal with it on a daily basis. But, you know, if I have been successful in podcasting or, you know, sharing my story, it's because I would never say like I'm better than anybody else. I don't want to be the freaking victim. I want to have my power back. I think I'm a good person. I've become a better person because of all of this stuff. And what
But see how
even
our head is trying to make you feel bad about
yeah,
speaking about it?
yeah,
No, screw that. You are not saying that you're the victim at all. You are
yeah.
saying, "This is what happened to me. This is what it felt like."
Mhm.
Stating a fact isn't playing victim, isn't claiming victim. It's just stating the facts about what people did and how it felt.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so now that she has a really awesome podcast that is like on the top of the charts. So she's being very humble. But you've have transformed it into interviewing people and sharing their stories. And another thing, you already had complex PTSD trauma. If you hadn't, like you said, it would be just as awful what they did. But the fact that you know, had both and are walking through it, that's your like superpower. And people do need to hear about it. And you having the podcast and talking about it and interviewing other people, how they've walked through trauma and are thriving, like we said,
Mhm.
living
Thriving is putting your
living the work every day.
yeah,
Yeah, is
yeah.
awesome. What is your favorite thing about your podcast that you like?
I think my favorite
Yeah.
thing is, well, meeting people like you. I love I love, I love that I mean, I say at the end of every podcast, "Be happy by making other people happy." I think that that's what has helped me remain on this planet, like meeting some of the people I've interviewed. I kind of think to myself, like, those are my people. Like, I'm very drawn to people that have been through trauma or kind of been through things because I feel like those people are really honestly like my people. They're genuine, most of them are authentic, and you know, I think
They
that
know what's most important in
yeah, they
life.
know like they know what it's like to be like in the worst place possible. And so that it is honestly my favorite thing about being doing my podcast. It's not always easy every week doing it. There's hard things that I listen to and have to hear. But I just kind of like selfishly go, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. I can get through this,
Mhm.
you know?
Okay, my dear. You're awesome.
So are you.
You're awesome. Megan and I have partnered up to support Shatterproof, which is a national organization that does a variety of things to end the stigma of addiction, which I believe is so very much tied into mental health. And so there is a walk on November 4th, but we are raising money to support that. And so please check it out through the link in the bio. And Megan, what are some I was gonna ask you, what are some warning signs of the Karens? Um,
Don't come to this area. No, there's Karens everywhere.
no, I meant
Yeah.
I meant symbolically.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, it's so funny 'cause I just, wrote a list of how to spot interpersonal fraud, and I think they're kind of related, like presentation of perfection only or blaming and shaming of others, yet never introspection
Mhm.
or apologies or I think that they're kind of related. So if the Karens have definitely some characteristics of fraud. That's my 2 cents.
Mhm. I think people
Okay.
just need to listen to their gut in friendships. I
Yes.
mean, I have women reach out to me often about, oh, like I had a friend do something similar to me, or I had a group of friends. And, if you're in a relationship, like like a sexual, physical relationship, and you see signs of like, your partner being not so kind, you probably want to get out of that. If you see signs of them excluding you or you hear they're talking badly about you behind your back, or that's not a real friend. Like real friends don't do that. And one thing I will end with is once I'm very selective about who I hang out with now. And now the difference is I know that when I get up from a table and I'm at dinner with my friends now, nobody's going to talk badly about me. In fact, I think the friends that I've made since this has happened in this area, I know that if they overheard somebody bad mouthing me, they would say, and they would say something.
Mhm.
And if that means instead of me having, 30 phony friends in a group and now just having like 3, 4, 5, I'm fine with that because I have lifelong friends. I have so much to be grateful for. It doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean I'm not still pissed that I wasted all those years of my life in a group of friends with people I thought were my friends. And the hardest part that I will have to deal with and I'm working through is I'm never going to get a sorry. And
Right.
so to never get a sorry is really, really difficult. But the thing is like me carrying this with me is not doing anything except hurting myself. So I have to work through this. I know that.
It is really, really, really hard.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to do the same
Mhm.
from over a year old breakup that over that year, the shaming that was done, and this was in the rooms, was so awful. But
Mhm.
for awareness of the Karens and for awareness of just evil, darkness like that, um, we have to stay connected to our truth within. And any little breath to just say to ourselves, I am not a body nor these thoughts. Like, I know my true self. I know my truth can build this aura around us that isn't like an armor up, like tough, like you go in and no one can touch me. I mean, yeah, that's nice. But it energetically, just energetically, it quiets the voices and the gossip from the outside if they are there. And then it bounces off if we are just connected to the truth, our true self of what we are. And yours, dear, yours just shines. Yours just shines and silences it all completely. Okay.
Thank you.
The light and the love always, always prevail. Always. Okay. Thank you so much.
Of a flame that never dies.
You are not alone. If you are dealing with shame and trauma, please reach out to me through my website, nadia-davis.com. You can get a free band shame tip sheet and find out about upcoming events. I'd love it if you picked up my book, Home is Within You, wherever books are sold. If you like this podcast, please tell a friend, leave a review, and make sure to follow me on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Sending warm hugs.